Welcome to the 132nd edition of Make Pro Wrestling Majestic again. I am Tigerhite.
And I am Peanut Gallery.
So, year end. So we don't technically do awards. We just kind of have a broad discussion regarding what's happening. And this will be the last podcast for us in 2023. We will not be doing a show next week.
Yes.
So, don't expect that, but let's start talking about what really went through, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that great stuff. And I think the best place to do it is pretty much the biggest news-related thing in the world of wrestling.
Yep.
I would say ever.
Yeah.
And that is the merger.
Yep.
It happened. They did not expect it to. I didn't expect it to happen until I think like 2025 is when they projected it, but they steamrolled to get this in here. I'm just not sure how much influence this TKO group has currently.
It's the first time ever that Vince McMahon, as a promoter, is no longer involved in the wrestling business in any capacity.
Right.
Like at the beginning of the year, he was the CEO of the company.
Yeah, he was. And then, with the sex scandal stuff, and then...
Yeah, the sex scandal stuff was last year.
Oh, was that last year?
Yeah, it was last year.
Oh, that was last year. You're right.
And then he reemerged as CEO this year to sell the company, essentially, is what his goal was. And he accomplished the goal. He is no longer in control of...
He bought this company for $1 million from his dad, who didn't even want him in the business in the first place, and he sold it for like $8 billion.
So... that was a pretty big deal. There is no longer a McMahon at the helm of the WWE.
And is this a positive or a negative? Or is it too early to tell? Because it's
way too early to tell.
This closed, September, October of this year?
This was a chapter-defining industry moment.
Oh, God, yes. This is mainstream now.
Yeah.
But of what I have seen so far, obviously WWE is white hot, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But this was definitely one of the bigger things.
This is the biggest story of the year.
Oh, by far.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, let's go to a negative, and that is pretty much
the death of Ring of Honor as a separate brand. Like, it is no longer its own separate thing. It has fully and completely become an AEW brand.
Right. This is just reskinned AEW Dark.
Yep.
That's what it is. The decisions that have been made regarding this company have been nothing less than disastrous.
Yep.
The fact that they only run like 2 or 3 pay-per-views a year to not promoting Honor Club 0.0 at all.
Right.
Now, they started off strong with the purchase of Ring of Honor, where we saw it constantly. And it's like, okay, this is fine.
Right.
But as the time progressed, and especially this year, it's just not there.
No, it has become a failed experiment, if you want to call it that, for Tony Khan and his...
This has to be the end of this company, please.
Right.
I mean, Ring of Honor was such a beacon of talent and a beacon in the wrestling industry of that true sort of underground alternative, and it just went to shit so fast as soon as the purchase happened.
But, props to Tony for trying to keep it alive. It's just not a company worth keeping at this point.
It's not. It's you're tarnishing what Ring of Honor is as a name.
Right.
He needs to get out of this now, because this is not making good business sense at this point.
It's not.
Like, at all.
So that's kind of where we're at with this. It's just... yeah, I mean, WWE would have just bought it for the library and then just completely destroyed the company.
Maybe they have, like, certain things, like, there are some neat, names that they could use, like Final Battle and shit, like they do with Great American Bash and War Games and all of that. But really, I think that probably would have been the best decision, even with Tony Khan. Just get rid of the titles, get rid of,
he should have retired the brand when he had the chance to do so.
And I think now they're too far into it. I think at this point, he's just going to close the company and hold the Ring of Honor name and just not do anything with it, because it's just a huge expense.
Yep.
Now, positive, WWE's just mammoth steamrolling.
Oh, yeah.
From earlier this year to where it is now is night and day.
Yeah, it's nothing short of a creative miracle what has happened to the WWE.
I mean, just banging rivalries, tremendous matches, to the records that this company is setting, and where I can see the clear picture on what they're going to do next year. It's not even the same WWE. It's just not.
I mean, we got a taste of it when Triple H fully took control of creative, but now with the TKO merger, it's a very clear indication that there is no McMahon influence on the product.
There's not.
The product is totally different because of the decisions that were made at a higher level to let Paul Levesque take complete control of the brand.
Well, the problem is that Vince was the president of the board of directors of TKO for a minute, but he had that spinal surgery, and his health just could not recover from it. So he had to. I'm not sure if he's still the CEO of that particular
I don't
branch.
think he is. He definitely doesn't have control, especially creatively. I mean, Triple H has just been given all of the control of this company,
and it's clearly been working.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie, people, and it's just been good after good after good.
Yep.
Now, not everything is good, but WWE's momentum at this point has just been nothing short of. If you told me WWE would be in this point last year, I would have called you crazy.
Yeah.
Now,
let's talk about the most influential wrestler of the year in many ways.
Ironically, CM Punk. From the All-In Brawl to essentially the biggest return in the last 25 years.
The hell has froze over narrative has become true.
Yep. I mean, this has been, positives and negatives to both companies.
Yeah.
I mean, they are playing Punk very carefully in WWE right now.
Yep.
He hasn't made an appearance since he signed to Raw, but that was done by design.
Yep.
He doesn't have to be there every week. But he is
not.
a draw.
I think he kind of does his own thing, but he is a draw. This was probably one of the biggest debuts of the year.
Would you consider the firing of CM Punk one of the biggest blunders in wrestling, especially given the fact that
I don't think Tony Khan knew what to do with CM Punk, honestly. I don't think that he was prepared for someone like CM Punk.
Because the inmates are running the asylum in that motherfucker. There's no other explanation.
The saga with CM Punk within AEW exposed the company for kind of what it is.
A train wreck. It's a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yep.
This is, and now I just heard that at the end of World's End, another vice president of the company is leaving.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And this is the vice president, I think, of touring and shit. And he's taking a job at the Barclays Center.
Right. But it really has, CM Punk's whole saga has really exposed the shortcomings of a brand that a couple of years ago was white hot.
Yep.
And now it also says a lot about the company, WWE, how much it has changed as a company since the TKO merger, because this would never have happened under the Vince McMahon regime.
And, here's the thing. Seth Rollins and CM Punk have personal rivalries, and they are working a program with them. No other company can have these two agree with it. You know why? Because there is a certain standard that WWE now has to meet for the wrestlers and their professionalism. There's a huge difference between a company that is 100% professional, because this would not have happened at all in any other circumstance, in any other company, how CM Punk left in the first place. There's no way.
Right. But moving on from CM Punk, let's talk about the, quote, biggest wrestling event ever.
Bullshit. 100% bullshit.
The presentation itself was not bad.
No, I liked it.
The matches themselves were not bad, but it has become a meme in of itself. It is probably the most talked about event of the year, just because of all the associated crap that came with it. And of course, All In has that nostalgia going back to, harkening back to a 2019 All In. But this was not the same event.
No.
It was like I said, it was very well presented. It was obviously AEW's biggest event ever in history. But we got to talk about some of the negatives as well. We got to talk about the embellishments that were made. We got to talk about
there was not 81,000 people in the building. I think they said 72,135 is what I saw.
Which is still a pretty good number.
Oh, for a non-WWE show, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was not that 81,000 that you people jerk off on. It just wasn't. There was not 81,000 people in that building. But now the question is, what happened with the rest of those? Because 10,000 people just didn't get a ticket and didn't show up. That just does not make sense. Maybe a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000. that would make sense to me, but not 10,000 people.
Right.
That's a lot of people.
And then we also got to talk about, we alluded to it with CM Punk, but we also got to talk about the brawl that happened backstage after all.
It overshadowed everything else on the show. The brawl in and the numbers defined this event.
I mean, the event had good wrestling, don't get me wrong, but the legacy of this event is not the wrestling.
It's not.
It has become something completely unrelated to the product itself.
Yep.
Just like
and that's bad.
Right, just like what happened with the previous scuffle. It overshadowed the entire event.
They call it Brawl Out. I mean,
right.
And then right after this, then they had another All Out not even a week after, which it totally fell flat on its face because everything was put into this event.
Right, everything was put into All In.
Right.
And it just didn't work out for the American side when they came back and did their pay-per-view. So, that's kind of where we're at with that one.
Yep. Let's talk about NXT and this absolute nowhere of a decision to go to the CW and how much this particular brand has changed.
Well, again, we're not under the McMahon regime anymore. It has become Shawn Michaels' baby, and it has thrived.
Yep.
And these competitors look like stars. This has become almost mainstream.
These are rookies. Some of the people from the NIL who were in other brands
very few people who come into this start out in the wrestling industry. These are not indie darlings, or with very few exceptions.
Very few exceptions.
They are literally competitors from other disciplines,
and they come into this brand where wrestling is very different, and just caught on with it. To me, Tiffany Stratton is a great example of that. An insane difference of what she has done presentationally. Braun Breaker, he didn't work on the indies. He came from NFL, I think.
Yeah.
But he had the second generation on him. But look at the difference in quality.
Yeah.
Carmelo Hayes is another great example. These people are freaking great.
Yep. It's something that you shouldn't sleep on. And obviously, the CW has not slept on it. They want that.
Now, we will talk about the other part of that CW controversy later, because that was also very big.
Right.
But we wanted to give the NXT its flowers because it deserves it. Yeah. NXT went from, the colorful stuff went away before the year started, right? Okay, so it was still it still had that color stink.
It has, in my opinion, it is the vision of what the colorful NXT was with the style of the black and gold, which is kind of what we want from this
what we
brand.
Want, what we needed.
Right. NXT has found its new voice as a place not necessarily for indie darlings to go to, but a place for people to develop into WWE superstars.
But also the standard to be called up has drastically changed too. You have to be good at everything. And look at what has been produced. The workload, the work ethic of these people had just not shy away. This deal with the CW, I think I saw $30 million a year.
Yeah, and that's no laughing matter. That is
the
lot of
CW
money.
is paying WWE to be there. That's insanity.
But anyways, let's end off with the internet wrestling community.
It has gotten so much worse. It is incredibly toxic.
It's incredibly divided as well.
And that's coming from me, who's right now in this Mark Briscoe controversy. By the way, I ain't fucking apologizing because I'm right. But it is so divided. It's horrendous. You can't be a wrestling fan. You have to pick a brand and be that.
Right.
We are the latter on that. We do not pick a brand to like. We see positives in both. And that's why generally we're not, well, me especially, that's why we're not liked. Because we call out the crap and praise the good no matter what brand it is.
Right.
It's It's gotten so bad.
Yeah, it has. I mean, there's no bones about it. The internet wrestling community has become a toxic cesspool.
Oh, it's horrendous. I mean, I thought last year was bad. It's gotten 10 times worse.
Oh, I know.
Since then. It's like, what can we do as a community to sort of get a grip? And here's the thing. The biggest thing is to not use social media. Period. That is the crux of the issue. Everybody can have a voice, and nobody can handle disagreement. That is the problem. So,
anyways, when we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more. A lot of this can be outside of
WWE and
AEW, but we'll be right back.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we are back. Peanut Gallery. A lot has happened within New Japan, even over the last 2 days.
Yeah. Like with the whole announcement of developing that union with other wrestling companies.
But not only that, but Hiroshi Tanahashi. Yes, that Hiroshi Tanahashi will be president of the company after Wrestle Kingdom. This was announced, I think, yesterday. Yeah. So how that's going to, because they already wrapped up all of their shows. There are no more shows between now and Wrestle Kingdom. But how is that going to change anything?
I don't know. Anyways, but let's talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling in general. And their attempt to be relevant, but their fumble as a result.
They slipped on the banana. Strong was ironically strong last year. They were very promoted, and it was done really well. Hell, we went to one of the shows last year.
But it has really kind of slipped away. It has really failed to capture the market. Now they're really becoming over-reliant on AEW, especially to promote their brand.
And that is a problem. You need to stand out by yourself. What makes you different? You just look like AEW diet.
You look like AEW with more Japanese wrestlers.
And even then, it's like there's no sort of...
There's no identity with Strong.
Not anymore. There used to be. It's like it used to... Fred Rosser used to run the ship. With Tom Lawler. And it's like... You can go there and you can see all these people from New Japan, and it's like almost exclusive. But since they've incorporated a lot more AEW people, it's lost its way.
And especially with the incorporation with New Japan Pro Wrestling main roster as well, you kind of lost that luster.
I mean, I feel like that would actually be more of a benefit if they actually incorporated maybe a couple of more of those.
Well, I'm talking Strong incorporating into the main roster of New Japan. It's kind of lost its identity as a separate brand.
It has to be by itself. Because what makes it special than the rest of it? It doesn't. There's nothing there. It's a hard one to really say because there was so much potential with it. I mean, New Japan had so much momentum when they made Strong, and they really hit the ground running with Strong. But
Strong has really kind of faded into a mix between New Japan and AEW.
Eddie Kingston is the Strong Openweight champion. There is nobody in that tournament where that title is technically on the line. It's just another prop. Same thing with Strong's women's champion. I don't think a Strong women's wrestler ever held the belt. It started with Willow Nightingale, and then it's Julia. Julia's not even signed with the company, and there was no talks of her being there. She has the literal title.
So, I don't know. Anyways, let's move on to another fumble, and that's Monet.
Stardom. You had.
Well, she wasn't signed to Stardom. She was signed to New Japan Pro Wrestling.
But she was there. But she was showing up on Stardom shows. They did not capitalize that. We were covering Stardom for a better part of this year because with her coming in
we were thinking that it was going to become a Strong brand, but now
they did not capitalize on that exposure to those Stardom people. I'm sorry. No English commentary, no exposure outside of this. Why didn't you? There was no reason for them to. They dropped the Mercedes Moné fucking ball.
Oh yeah, they did. And with talks of her going back to the WWE on the horizon, with Julia leaving, with Mariah May I mean, there's so much star power that is being lost. With Kairi Sane.
Yeah, Kairi Sane too. Yeah, she left.
There was so much star power that was lost after this initial push. I wonder if maybe the brand is dying in a way.
Maybe I wonder if they got cold feet as it relates, because they're like, well, we don't want these bigger companies to give these women more money for them to leave. It's like, it's going to happen eventually.
Right. It is.
So they did not have English commentary. And then, I'm not saying that because I'm ignorant. I'm saying that because that's a universal language.
Right.
I mean, English is spoken within many countries and is essentially taught because a lot of international jobs require English as a second language.
A lot of people can understand English, even if they don't speak it. But yeah,
they did not capitalize on that at all.
This whole experiment with Stardom has essentially failed.
Yep. I mean, I think there's a way to bring it back, but they got to start strong with English commentary.
Yeah.
Like for every pay-per-view, not special ones, every pay-per-view. You got to give us a reason to care. And it's like, well, learn Japanese. You know how hard Japanese is? I'm learning it now.
It's not easy to learn.
No, it is not.
Anyways, let's move on to a brand that's been done really well.
Oh my God, this shit's been steamrolling too. Impact Wrestling / TNA. Now, they were doing really goddamn well up until they decided to do the upgrades in production, which, it's needed.
It is. It's very much needed.
But how they're doing it is fumbling. I'm not doing the Impact Wrestling reviews.
Yeah.
Why? Because they've done a month and a half with no canon shows.
Right.
None.
Right.
And I'm not covering non-canons. And we looked at the ticket attendance for TNA going into the Palms. It's not, I mean, they're getting there, but it's not quite where it was. We live here. We have the expectation on going, but we can wait. We have the option.
Right.
It's like, I don't care if the tickets are $35.
Right. But anyways, going back to just Impact Wrestling in general.
We have to say in the negatives too.
But going back to it, they've had a stellar year.
Mm-hmm,
this has been probably one of their better years.
One of the best matches of the year was Will Ospreay and Josh Alexander. That was this year.
Yeah.
Will Ospreay and Mike Bailey
even Uncle Dave gave it a 5.25 stars, which was the highest rated match that he has done in Impact history.
Right. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin have just been great as champions. I mean, everything about it really, I mean, not everything, but a lot of
it is really good. And they're going to have a better 2024 as a result of it.
Absolutely. And I'm excited for it. I am genuinely excited for it. And them going to that Endeavor streaming service, that's huge.
Yeah.
They're teasing this big new signing. It might be Mercedes.
Yep.
If that's Mercedes, boom, they're slam dunked.
Yep.
That's an incredible signing.
Trinity has revitalized the women's division entirely.
Yep. Same thing with Jordan Grace, who looks fucking awesome.
Yep.
It's just such a crazy time right now in Impact Wrestling. I'm not calling it TNA until Hard to Kill.
Right. But anyways... moving on to someone who's had Brandon's had more of a mixed year.
NWA. So they signed with the CW, and then they wanted to snort coke.
And now they're in danger of losing that TV deal.
Well, they're on the CW streaming service,
right?
Which is big. Like, that's not anything to sneeze at.
But I think they were looking for a mainstream TV deal, and
it could still theoretically happen. It could still theoretically happen, but how that whole incident changed that perspective, I think, really hurt, because right after that, NXT announced that they were with the CW.
Right.
So. And now Billy Corgan said that he had a couple of TV deals already signed. Whatever that means, I don't know.
Right.
But let's talk about the positives.
NWA has not had a bad year.
No.
They are restarting territory system, which I think was the biggest news story coming out of the NWA this year.
Yep, I'm covering them regularly, and people have been really liking it, and I like it too. I like NWA.
Yeah, it's a good product. The product is good.
EC3 beat Tyrus for the title this year, right?
Yep.
Yes, he did. So you have EC3 on that representation. They started off strong with Tyrus as champion.
Yep.
I'm sorry, hate to tell you, people. Tyrus was a draw.
Yeah,
people watched Tyrus.
Yep. Them transitioning maybe to a younger, and I love all the showcase that they do with the newer stars as well.
Yep, absolutely.
They have really kind of embraced their independent spirits, have moved away from signing a huge roster and everything, which is fine, but they're using more indie talent, which I like.
I do too. I think it's a good exposure for them. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing that I worry about is them doing it too much, and then there is an unfamiliar, non-identical, a roster that doesn't have its own personal identity.
Right, because this roster does not have its own there are there are some stars that are regulars.
There's some strong stars that are on there, like Nims, EC3, Camilla's still with them, Tom Latimer. I mean, they have a solid roster, but they're introducing too many of the others into the mix, and it's starting to become a little muddy.
Well, but again, this is a part of their identity. They're kind of rebranding themselves or going back to a not necessarily a hard territory system, but a soft territory system.
They're playing around with it with very small companies, which I think is great for them. There is the reintroduction of possibly a new NWA champion that will be traveling around to these smaller territories, which I think is great.
Yep.
But I think that whole incident with the Coke and the CW sort of getting cold feet is pretty much one of their biggest blunders.
Yeah, it was.
Now, we just don't know how that's going to affect them in the future because, but as of right now, they're doing good.
Yeah.
They really came out from the ashes, and I'm excited for it. And I'm excited to see the future. Now, let's go into some matches. Let's go into the good matches. There were freaking awesome matches. We talked about a couple of them. Will Ospreay and Mike Bailey. We have this one, which was a phenomenal match. Carmelo Hayes and Ilya Dragunov. Baron Corbin and what's his name? Just recently, they had a great match.
I don't remember.
But they had a great match. Oh, it was Corbin and Ilya.
Yeah.
That was a great match. There was just a lot of stellar stuff.
Yeah, there was. A lot of great matches this year.
The standards are so much higher to where you can go with this, and it's fantastic to see. Here's the thing about wrestling. It's like you don't have to hit each other with a bunch of shit to get a good match.
Right.
You can tell a great story, have great people in the right situation, and it's, good wrestling, but it's safe.
Yep.
And I even said this before. Wrestling right now, I think, is better than it was in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Because it's safer for the workers. It's better production quality. The exposure for these companies is better, so there are more options.
Yep.
It's just a great thing to see.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the bad.
Yeah, there were quite a few blunders with even the WWE earlier this year. You had a couple of horrendous matches with so much branding.
Baron Corbin and Gable Steveson.
Yep.
You had this match, which was unbelievably horrible. This was so terrible.
You had the what was that?
I hate saying
that
this.
Mountain Dew match.
Yeah, I hate saying it because that was Bray's last match, but that match was dog water.
It was bad.
That shit was crap. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler had a real stinker at SummerSlam. So you have to take the good and the bad.
But they are doing less. I think that they're trying to play around with certain things this year with regards to branding. But it was a hit and miss year, I would say, for branding.
I would say
being
more
incorporated into wrestling.
Yep, absolutely. All right, journalism. It's been bad this year.
Yep.
I mean, there have been so many botched, horrendous stories that they had to backtrack on.
Yep.
I think more now than I've ever seen.
And maybe it's because the dirt sheets are not the way that they used to be, or maybe they're not getting the right information from the right people.
No, the problem is that they're being too biased.
Yeah, I would think so.
We have seen the mold that's happened here where they will try to skew what is going on. And I think part of the issue is the internet wrestling community that really perpetuates certain stories to where, this one gets clicks, let's turn it. It's like that's not how this is supposed to work.
It's not. And so I think that the journalists are just trying to get clicks by writing stories.
And that's not good.
Right. And
that shouldn't be the purpose of it. We should be honest of what it is, because then you don't look like a bunch of jackasses where outside media outlets will look at these goobers and say, look at these fucking morons, But now, this is not the last one, but we have to acknowledge the deaths this year. There have been quite a few big ones.
Yep.
Obviously, Bray Wyatt. This one was the most out of nowhere. one that I think hit the community the hardest.
Yes, this one was, I think, really hard on the wrestling community as a whole.
Well, because it was so fresh in everybody's mind. I mean, we had Terry Funk passing away, Lenny Potho passing away. Did they say Terry Funk? Yeah, I said Terry Funk. Iron Sheik passing away. But these are stars from 70s, 80s, right? Where this one was, he just returned.
Yep.
And just was about ready to get back into the ring after getting COVID, and then he dies.
Yes. And it was a sudden, and no one saw it coming.
Yep. It was just like Brody Lee.
Yeah. And this, I think, was the first death of an active member of the WWE roster since Benoit.
Yep. It's like, that's crazy to think.
That was back in 2008.
Yep. I mean, what the heck is... Oh, Jay Briscoe. Jay Briscoe passed away this year, too, in January.
Yep.
And that one hit everybody really hard, too, because that was a car accident.
Yep.
Now, I have certain feelings about how they're treating the whole scenario now, but look at the difference between how Jay's tributes are going and how Bray's tributes are going.
There aren't a lot of Bray tributes.
You know why? Because you don't need it.
Right. It's not needed. And it's very likely that this guy will be in the Hall of Fame next year.
Oh, it has to. He has to.
And he might be a headliner.
He has to.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, what about this person? Like, they deserve it. But I think given on what happened with Bray, I think Bray has to be the head. He has to. Well, especially given that they signed him to a Legends contract, and the money that would be going from that is going towards the kids.
Right.
It's like, fuck. Can we just literally not?
Right.
It's awesome.
But anyways, that's kind of...
Final thing. Because I don't want to leave on this. It's morbid, but let's do a prediction. What do you see within 2024 given where we're sitting now?
Well, obviously I think WWE is going to continue to do well.
Yep.
I think AEW is going to continue to suffer.
I don't think it's
Ring of Honor.
If the trajectory on what's happening, at least as it relates to quarters, I don't see AEW living too much longer. I see them living. I just don't see them thriving. You don't lose $34 million and continue, even with Billionaire Daddy's money. Like, Billionaire Daddy's eventually going to pull the plug.
Well, yeah, and I think that we're going to start seeing pressure. I think it's really going to hinge on television deals next year. Television deals are going to make or break that company at this point.
Yeah,
and if WBD is looking at WWE as a product, then I don't know how that's going to affect the relationship with AEW.
It's not going to be good because there's no way they're going to have both, and they see Raw as a more valuable fucking property.
But let's not talk too much about, because like I said, TV deals are TV deals. Right. They are going to make or break that company.
Now, as a positive, with AEW announcing where they're going to be way ahead of schedule, the ticket sales for next year are doing better. Yes. I will give them credit. They are doing better. But now the other issue is they're going to buy the ticket. Can they keep up with that promise on putting on a good show?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. And we're seeing the direction that AEW is going.
I mean, Ring of Honor has to be gone. There's no way they can sustain it.
I think Ring of Honor is going to survive through 24. I don't think it's going to do very well in 24, but I think it's going to survive through 24.
They got to do something big. They have to do something big.
They got to do something about it. So Ring of Honor is having an identity crisis.
I think TNA will thrive as well, given where they're going to be, what direction they're going, and what they put on this last year. I think they're going to be just fine.
Yep.
Same thing with NWA. Yep. I think they'll be just fine.
Now, one brand I don't see surviving into 24, at least in its current form, it's going to be Strong. I think that Strong is kind of going to be merged back into the regular roster of NGPW, and I think that they're going to treat Strong like they treat Tanahashi in New Zealand, where it's really, really more of a wrestling school than anything.
Well, let's talk about New Japan in general. How does this, with Hiroshi Tanahashi being the new president, what's going to happen with them? Do you think it'll be a net positive for them or a net negative?
I don't know.
And you see, that's the other thing with, especially with New Japan, their exposure in America is almost done.
Yeah.
If WWE is really considering going to Japan for their next NXT, that may not be good. And don't give me the whole bullshit about NXT UK. The reason that happened was because of the pandemic.
Yes, it was. And they're moving to, and we can talk a lot about what NXT is doing with regards to their global expansion. Because remember, NXT is going to Europe next year.
Yep.
So there's a lot to look forward to. I think 24 is going to be a great year for wrestling in general.
And we're going to be covering it. We're going to be here. So
we'll be here.
If you guys enjoyed this video, let us know in the comments down below. If you liked or did not like what you thought about this, subscribe to the channel, become a patron, follow all of our social medias. You know, there might be some differences with our show too. You never know.
But anyways, next time we are going to be covering... World's End, and we're also going to be covering Wrestle Kingdom.
So no show next week. We have family in town for the holidays, so take that break. For my reviews, I will not be doing reviews for next week. There are too many shows that are doing recaps for 2023 that it's not justified.
Right.
So I am doing a more organized best and worst of lists in lieu of those.
Okay.
So keep out on that. And as always, be
majestic.